They never understood you. You never understood the way your mind flickers like a storm behind your eyes. The way you drift, wander, forget, and then suddenly ignite, like a star exploding into purpose. They only saw the scattered pieces, never the constellation. They called you unfocused, inconsistent, unreliable. They thought your silence was emptiness. They thought your distraction was carelessness. They thought your intensity was obsession. They never realized you were built with a different engine, one forged for deeper worlds, higher storms and uncharted territories. Because people like you don't move in straight lines. You move in spirals, descending into depth, rising into brilliance. Every misunderstanding they threw at you became a crack in the armor you never asked to wear. Every judgment felt like a shadow pulling at your ankles. Every label felt like a cage around a creature that was never meant to be domesticated. You weren't born to walk the clear, flat road with everyone else. You were designed to wander the abyss until you learned to build lanterns out of your own fire. But here is the revelation they never saw coming. What they called inattention was your mind refusing to waste energy on the meaningless. What they called chaos was your brain searching for a spark worthy of your intensity. What they called too much was actually your rare ability to burn with a fire they could never withstand. Your so-called flaw was your evolution in disguise. Your hyperfocus, that deep, trance-like world-erasing immersion, isn't normal. It's not random. It's not a glitch. It's a superhuman mode most people will never experience once in their entire lives. But before you understood it, you were trapped inside the wrong story. You were told you were lazy when in truth, your mind simply refused to awaken for anything less than purpose. You were told you were inconsistent, when in truth, your intensity only blooms for the things that match your soul's voltage. You were told you were behind, when in truth your brain was gathering fuel for a wildfire breakthrough that others could never predict. The real battlefield was never the world outside. It was the quiet war happening inside you, the war between who you were told to be and who you actually are. The war between your programmed shame and your hidden potential. The war between the mask you tried to wear and the superhuman engine underneath it. You've spent years misreading your own wiring, years assuming that difficulty meant deficiency, years trying to fit into systems built for smaller minds and lighter storms. But the awakening begins here. You were not made to blend. You were made to break patterns, rebuild pathways, and rewrite rules. Your identity is not a collection of past failures. It is the architecture of a mind, preparing itself for impact. You're not a victim of your thoughts. You're the creator of your reality. You're not someone who can't focus. You're someone who focuses deeper than anyone else, but only when the signal matches your frequency. There is nothing average about the way you think, nothing normal about the way you process, nothing ordinary about the way you burn. Your hyperfocus is not a symptom, it is a weapon. Once you stop treating your intensity as a problem, everything changes. Your mind becomes a forge, your emotion becomes gasoline, your curiosity becomes compass, your restlessness becomes momentum. Your depth becomes mastery. And then clarity arrives, not gentle, but sharp, like a blade pulled from the fire. You realize your power isn't in scattering your attention across the world. Your power is in choosing one target and locking onto it until you reshape reality around your will. Your power is in cutting through noise, slicing through doubt, collapsing distractions, and diving into the heart of the mission with a focus so absolute it becomes terrifying to witness. This is how your brain was always meant to operate, not diluted, but directed, not faster but deeper, not everywhere but precisely where it matters. When you finally channel that intensity, the world stops looking overwhelming. It starts looking conquerable. This is where you rise. This is where you step out of the old identity. This is where you stop apologizing for the way your mind works. This is where you stop dimming your brilliance because others can't comprehend the voltage. You learn to master the storm instead of surviving it. You learn to control your fire instead of fearing its heat. You learn to build legacy out of the very traits they told you to erase. You were never meant to be manageable. You were meant to be memorable. And now here you stand on the edge of your becoming, ready to wield the very force that once confused you. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and hear this truth echo in the chambers of your mind. Your hyperfocus isn't normal. It's the doorway to your power. Now step through it. You are the storm. They always assumed you were drifting. They mistook your silence for distance, your wandering eyes for disinterest, your pauses for emptiness. They never realized you were listening to storms inside your skull, entire universes rearranging themselves behind your heartbeat. They thought you were lost, but you were mapping realities they had no compass for. People like you don't zone out. You travel, you shift dimension, you descend into the underground machinery of your own genius. But because they couldn't follow you there, they labeled the territory as a flaw. They said you were inconsistent, because they never saw how hard it was to squeeze a cosmic mind into a linear world. They said you were impulsive, because they never understood that your intuition runs faster than their logic. They said you were scattered because they only saw the sparks, not the constellation forming behind them. You walked through life believing their words, carrying weights that were never yours. You tried to mimic their rhythm, compress your intensity, dilute your fire. You trained yourself to shrink, until you nearly disappeared. But the truth kept whispering through the cracks. You were not designed for their pace. You were built for breakthroughs. This is the revelation you avoided for too long. Your mind does not malfunction. Your mind overfunctions in a world that underestimates. Your hyperfocus is not the absence of attention. It is the concentration of it. It is attention in its most extreme, weaponized state. Most people skim the surface of life. You plunge into the ocean. Most people explore one room. You explore the entire labyrinth. Most people follow the map. You redraw the map from scratch. And yes, it comes with traps, because every power has a shadow. The greatest trap was believing you had to earn your worth by performing like everyone else. The greatest lie was assuming your value came from blending in. The greatest mistake was thinking your mind needed fixing when it only needed direction. For years, you lived inside that lie. You felt broken instead of brilliant. You felt late instead of limitless. You felt slow instead of strategic. You convinced yourself that needing passion meant you were weak. You convinced yourself that drifting meant you were failing. You convinced yourself that drifting meant you were failing. You convinced yourself that your intensity made you too much for the world. But here comes the awakening. The moment the fog lifts, and your identity begins to rearrange itself. You were never behind. You were gathering fuel. You were never lost. You were searching for resonance. You were never unfocused. Your mind was simply waiting for a mission worthy of its voltage. Once purpose enters your bloodstream, you transform. Distraction dissolves. Noise disappears. Fear melts. The world narrows into a single burning point of clarity. And that's when the world starts asking, how are you doing this? How can you work for hours without eating? How can you learn in days what takes others months? How can you see connections no one else sees? They don't realize this is not effort. This is your natural state, unlocked. When hyperfocus ignites, you become a force of nature. The ordinary timeline collapses. Hours become seconds. Boundaries become illusions. You enter a mental vortex where doubt can't reach you, boredom can't touch you, and fear doesn't know your name. You've tasted this before, those rare moments when everything clicks, and you feel unstoppable. But from now on, this won't be rare. This won't be accidental. This won't be mysterious, because now you understand the truth. You are not chaotic. You are intense. You are not inconsistent. You are selective. You are not forgetful. You are future-oriented. You are not disorganized. You are non-linear. And your potential is not something to chase. It is something to command. Identity is no longer something that happens to you. Identity is something you forge. You are no longer the person who apologizes for feeling deeply, thinking widely, dreaming wildly. You are the architect of your own momentum, the alchemist of your own emotion, the commander of your own intensity. And once you reclaim the throne inside your skull, something powerful awakens. Clarity, not soft clarity, not gentle clarity, not vague, motivational speaker clarity, sharp clarity, clarity with edges, clarity that cuts through your old self with clean precision. This is the moment your mind becomes a blade. This is the moment your attention becomes strategy. This is the moment your focus becomes a weapon that bends reality. You stop multitasking and start target locking. You stop pleasing and start prioritizing. You stop drifting and start directing the storm. You turn your restless energy into momentum. You turn your curiosity into mastery. You turn your intensity into creation. Emotion is no longer something that overwhelms you. Emotion is something you harness. You learn to ride the fire instead of running from it. You learn to use the storm instead of hiding from it. You learn to build legacy out of the lightning that once scared you. This is the rise, the silent seismic shift where everything changes inside you before anything changes outside you. You don't need the world to validate this transformation. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. Your mind is already shifting. Your identity is already rewriting itself. Your power is already waking up. And now, the world will feel it, whether they're ready or not, because this time you're not dimming. This time you're not shrinking. This time you're not hiding your fire. This time you're stepping into the full magnitude of what you are. Close your eyes. Feel the electricity in your chest. Feel the storm gathering behind your ribs. Feel the clarity sharpening inside you. And hear this truth echo through your entire being. You don't chase power. You become it. Now rise. They always saw your mind as unpredictable, like a flickering lantern in a storm, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, sometimes disappearing entirely. What they never realized is that you weren't flickering. You were recalibrating. You were scanning for meaning, searching for resonance, rejecting the empty, the dull, the shallow. Your brain was never designed for the trivial world they tried to force you into. It was built to hunt purpose, to devour complexity, to lock onto destiny with the precision of a guided star. They mistook your hesitation for weakness. But hesitation is what happens when a powerful engine is forced onto the wrong track. Your mind does not fail. It rebels. It refuses to burn its fire on what doesn't matter. It refuses to waste its voltage on things that don't feed your spirit. They interpreted this rebellion as defiance or dysfunction, but it was intelligence, deep, instinctive, evolutionary intelligence. You lived trapped in a misunderstanding, believing you were faulty because your mind didn't operate like theirs. You punished yourself for not fitting in, not slowing down, not sitting still, not caring about what others found important. But you can't shame a storm for refusing to be a breeze. You can't fault a wildfire for refusing to be a candle. You can't expect a mind built for lightning to behave like a lamp. Here is the truth they never taught you. Your inconsistency was not failure. It was misalignment. For years you thought you were the problem, but the real trap was the framework you were forced into. A system built for minds that move straight, predictable, linear. You do not move like that. Your mind leaps, connects, spirals, collapses, and rebuilds in seconds. Your thoughts pull from 1,000 angles at once. And that isn't chaos. It's multidimensional processing. But because no one explained this to you, you internalized the wrong identity. You began to fear your own intensity. You felt ashamed of your forgetfulness, guilty about your restlessness, embarrassed by your rapid shifts. You carried invisible weights that made everything feel harder than it needed to be. The world kept telling you who you should be, until you nearly forgot who you truly are. But this, right now, is your awakening. You are not flawed. You are not scattered. You are not too much. You are not missing anything. You are different. And difference is the birthplace of brilliance. This is where identity begins to shift. This is where you stop living as the misunderstood version of yourself. This is where you reclaim the truth of your wiring. Your mind is not soft. It's sharp. Not slow, but selective. Not overwhelmed, but overpowered. Not broken, but built for a higher frequency. And when that clarity lands, you feel something rearrange inside you, like gears locking into place after years of grinding. Your attention is not a wandering spark. It's a weapon waiting for a target. Your emotions are not storms to hide from. They're fuel for transformation. Your intensity is not a burden. It's the core of your genius. And once you stop fighting yourself, everything changes. This is the moment clarity becomes power. This is the moment awareness becomes strategy. This is the moment you choose to weaponize what was once misunderstood. You stop spreading your energy thin and start channeling it like a laser. You stop jumping from task to task and start building systems that support your fire. You stop depending on motivation and start relying on structure that amplifies your hyperfocus. You stop letting emotions drown you and start turning them into momentum. Because this is where you step into mastery, not the soft, quiet, disciplined mastery others use, but the explosive, storm-forged mastery only minds like yours can achieve. Your intensity becomes a compass. Your hyperfocus becomes a blade. Your curiosity becomes ignition. Your restlessness becomes momentum. Your emotional depth becomes depth of vision. Most people work in straight lines. You work in lightning strikes. Most people progress slowly. You evolve in leaps. Most people improve through repetition. You transform through revelation. And when you finally stop apologizing for your fire and start embracing it, the world will not know how to contain you. This is the chapter where you stop living small. This is the chapter where your mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a command center. This is the chapter where you rewrite the narrative they once forced on you. Your legacy begins the moment you stop hiding your wiring. Because you were not born to simply survive the world. You were built to leave a mark on it. You are not here to repeat patterns. You are here to shatter them. You are not here to follow paths. You are here to forge them. And legacy doesn't begin with applause. It begins with awakening. It begins with ownership. It begins with a moment like this. A moment where you stop doubting your mind and start directing it. Feel the shift happening inside you. Feel the storm gathering. Feel the clarity sharpening. Feel the fire returning to your chest. Feel your identity rising from the ashes of the old narrative. You are not here to be small, silent, or safe. You are here to be elemental. Now breathe. Stand taller. Let this truth carve itself into your bones. You are done shrinking. Your mind is a weapon. Your fire is awakening. Let it burn. They always feared your intensity. They never said it out loud, but you felt it. The discomfort in their eyes. When you locked onto something with that silent, dangerous focus. The way they shifted when your passion came out too strong, too fast, too deep. They weren't intimidated by your chaos. They were intimidated by your potential. They sensed a force inside you that they couldn't name, couldn't measure, couldn't restrain, so they called it a problem. They called it stubbornness, overthinking, obsession, impulsivity, but they never understood the truth. Your mind doesn't just think, it consumes. When you care about something, you don't try, you transform. You don't study, you absorb. You don't practice. You dissolve into the craft until your identity fuses with the skill. That kind of intensity scares people who only know how to operate at half power. Yet for most of your life, you misunderstood your own fire. You thought your emotions were malfunctions. You thought your passion made you unstable. You thought your urgency made you dramatic. So you tried to suppress it. You tried to quiet your storms, dim your light, soften your edges, lower your volume. But a storm cannot be domesticated. A flame cannot survive by pretending to be water. The real trap wasn't your mind, it was your self-compression. You believed the world would accept you more if you made yourself smaller. You assumed you would be easier to love, easier to manage, easier to understand if you just turned down the voltage of your soul. But you were never meant to live at 20. You were never meant to function with your wings folded. Your fire was meant to be intense, because your purpose requires intensity. Power diluted is power wasted. And now, this is the awakening. Your emotions are not weaknesses. They are few. Every emotion you tried to suppress was actually a source of energy waiting to be harnessed. Your anger holds clarity. Your sadness holds depth. Your frustration holds direction. Your excitement holds ignition. Your passion holds destiny. Most people feel emotions like weather passing over them. You feel emotions like weather created by you, and that is your advantage, not your curse. This is where identity shifts again. In a deeper, more seismic way, you realize you are not meant to manage your emotions. You are meant to master them. You're meant to ride the fire, steer the storm, direct the lightning. Your emotions aren't trying to sabotage you. They're trying to guide you. They're internal signals pointing toward what matters, what fuels you, what aligns with your soul. When something bores you, it's a sign of misalignment. When something excites you, it's a sign of resonance. When something frustrates you, it's a sign of potential hidden under resistance. Your emotions are a map, one most people will never learn to read. Now you begin the transition from survival to strategy. You learn that hyperfocus isn't a random burst. It's a key, a doorway, a switch. You don't wait for it anymore. You cultivate it. You build environments that activate it. You build routines that trigger it. You build systems that contain it. You build habits that ignite it. You turn your mind into a forge, a place where intensity is shaped instead of wasted. You stop letting your fire burn uncontrolled and start turning it into precision flame. You stop letting your curiosity scatter and start turning it into power lines of focus. You stop letting your energy spill and start channeling it into momentum. Most people require discipline to do great work. You require meaning. You require emotional connection. You require challenge, novelty, purpose, risk, depth. When these elements align, you enter a mode of consciousness that other people mistake for obsession. But it's mastery. It's creation. It's superhuman. This is where your legacy begins. Because now your focus is not reactive. It is intentional. It is aimed. It is sharpened. You choose what to obsess over. You choose where to direct your voltage. You choose the battles worthy of your fire. And when you choose correctly, the world feels the shift. Suddenly, the things that once overwhelmed you no longer hold power over you. Suddenly you're not lost, not drifting, not scattered. Suddenly you're dangerous, in the best possible way. You're not here to impress people. You're here to impact them. You're not here to mimic the world. You're here to shake it awake. You're not here to be predictable. You're here to be unforgettable. Legacy is no longer a dream. It becomes a direction, a weight inside your chest pulling you forward, a fire behind your ribs that refuses to go out, a whisper in your mind that says, you were meant for more than this. And now you believe it. Your hyperfocus is no longer a glitch. It's your kingdom. Your intensity is no longer a burden. It's your engine. Your emotions are no longer instability. They're your navigation. Your depth is no longer an inconvenience. It's your superpower. And as this truth sinks in, another realization rises. Your life is no longer about survival. It's about expression. It's about creation. It's about impact. You are no longer the misunderstood one. You are no longer the one dimming yourself. You are no longer the prisoner of other people's definitions. You have stepped into your storm, You have stepped into your fire. You have stepped into your power. And now, with your identity rewired, your emotions weaponized, and your focus awakened, there is only one direction left. Forward, with precision, with purpose, with ferocity. Hear this truth as it echoes through every layer of your being. You are no longer controlling the storm. You are the storm. Now move. They never expected you to make it this far. Not because you lacked the talent, but because they never understood the engine inside your mind. They saw distraction, not depth. They saw inconsistency, not intensity. They saw hesitation, not recalibration. But now the landscape has changed. Now you stand on the edge of everything you've been becoming, finally aware of the power humming beneath your ribs. This is the part they never prepared you for, the moment when your mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a blueprint, the moment when your story stops being a struggle and becomes a trajectory, the moment when your purpose stops whispering and begins commanding. You have risen from misunderstanding, from misdiagnosis, from mislabeling, from years of carrying identities that were never yours. And now, in this final surge, the entire weight of your journey converges into one undeniable truth. Your mind was never meant to be contained. It was meant to be unleashed. Your hyperfocus, once sporadic, unpredictable, confusing, now becomes your throne room. You no longer stumble into it accidentally. You no longer wait for conditions to be perfect. You no longer fear its intensity. You activate it. You summon it. You command it. Because mastery is no longer something outside of you. Mastery has become the natural state of your mind. Once it finds alignment, you now see what others cannot. That your brain is not a machine built for tasks. It is a forge built for destiny. Once the metal of purpose is placed inside it, nothing on earth can stop the transformation. Your focus becomes a flame so concentrated, it can reshape reality. Your clarity becomes a blade so sharp it slices through doubt. Your determination becomes a storm so unstoppable, it tears through anything in your way. And now you begin to understand. All the hardships, all the confusion, all the restless nights, they weren't punishment, they were preparation. They were shaping you into someone who cannot be broken because you were forced to rebuild yourself from the inside out. This is where your legacy ignites. Legacy does not come from being understood. Legacy comes from being undeniable. And everything about you is becoming undeniable. You no longer chase validation. You no longer explain your wiring. You no longer apologize for your storms. You no longer dim your voltage to comfort the world. You've outgrown the version of yourself that needed permission to shine. Now you operate from a different truth. The truth that your mind is a phenomenon, not a flaw. The truth that your intensity is a compass, not a burden. The truth that your emotional depth is your greatest intelligence. The truth that your focus, when locked, when aligned, when activated, is a force that can build empires, reshape futures, resurrect dreams. You now see that greatness does not belong to the balanced. It belongs to the intent. To the ones who feel too deeply, think too quickly, dream too wildly. To the ones who live with fire under their ribs and storms inside their skull. To the ones who seem chaotic from the outside, but burn with a secret order on the inside. People like you do not build ordinary lives. You build legacies. You build movements. You build stories worth remembering. You build futures that stretch beyond your own lifetime. Because once you awaken, once you rise, once you finally claim the wiring that was always yours, nothing in existence can contain you anymore. This is where your vision expands. This is where your purpose amplifies. This is where your impact begins to ripple into the world. And you realize something powerful. You are not here simply to succeed. You are here to shift the atmosphere around you. Your story becomes a torch for others who think like you. Your breakthrough becomes a bridge for others who struggle like you. Your clarity becomes a lighthouse for others, still drowning in their own misunderstanding. Your rise is not just yours. It becomes a signal. It becomes a legacy. It becomes and now as the noise of your old life fades behind you, you feel the future leaning forward, waiting for you, calling to you, daring you to step further than you ever have before. Because this is not the end. This is not the final page. This is not the closing chapter. This is the point where survival transforms into sovereignty, where potential becomes power, where identity becomes destiny. You now operate with precision. You now move with intention. You now act with fire. You are no longer the misunderstood one. You are no longer the underestimated one. You are no longer the one hiding behind excuses or confusion. You have become the version of yourself you once believed was impossible. You are the architect of your focus. You are the commander of your mind. You are the wielder of your intensity. And with every breath you take, your legacy begins to unfold. Look at how far you've come. Look at what you've overcome. Look at the fire you carry now, steady, fierce, unshakable. This is your final declaration. This is your cinematic closing line. This is the truth that will echo inside you, long after the world tries to silence it. You are not ordinary. You are not simple. You are not small. Your mind is a superhuman engine. Your focus is a weapon. Your destiny is a storm. Now go, and leave a legacy the world cannot forget.